this should have been one of the highlights of the year for Herpa Wings. Why I think instead it pretty much sums up everything that is wrong with Herpa, we'll find out now. Hello and welcome to a new episode of Review, where we today will take a closer look at a Boeing 737 MAX 8 of Cayman Airways. At the front of the box we have the cutout so we can get a glimpse of the aircraft model inside, and on top of the box we have the Cayman Airways branding. On the back side of the box we get the proof that Herpa, even with Herpa Wings Club models, can't be bothered to give us a decent looking box, because unfortunately we have another cutout. And even though the box says that this model is exclusive for Wings Club members, it really isn't, because I'm not a Herpa Wings Club member and I have the model, and no, I did not get it second hand. And then we can also see that it is a limited edition. Now, before we get going with the review, it is worth mentioning that this aircraft model comes with a stand. And here she is, the Boeing 737 MAX 8 of Cayman Airways, and on first glimpse I have to admit, I think it looks pretty darn good. But we of course have to take a closer look, so let's see if this first impression actually turns out to be right. Now, if we start off with the tail section, we can see here on the vertical stabilizer, we have the coat of arms of the Cayman Islands, and I think that looks really awesome, gives the aircraft a really great look. Then on the fuselage, we find the flag of the Cayman Islands, we have the full registration code, and we have the aircraft type specification. And at the very tail of the aircraft, we then also have a little bit of detailing around the APU exhaust. Then at the front of the aircraft and across the fuselage, we have the writing of Cayman Airways, and we have the Cayman Airways branding. Then underneath the cockpit windows we have this little logo here, or this little sticker, which says first 737 MAX. Underneath that we have some little writing. I wasn't quite sure what it says, but as far as I can make out, it says first 737 MAX in the Caribbean. But do feel free to correct me if I should be wrong here. And as this is a Herpa Wings Club model, we of course have additional details. So for example, we have petro tube printed on, stuff like that really helps out the model, so the cockpit section doesn't look too bare-boned as it normally would. And I think they have also done a decent job with the edges of the cockpit windows, and of course we also have the cockpit windows printed on. The engine nacelles have been kept in all white, just as most of the fuselage, but we do have the silver leading edges, and also here we have some additional prints, for example the jet blast warnings. A great little detail, adds a lot. I also think that the chevron nozzles look really awesome on this aircraft model. And then of course if you look into the engines from the front, we can also very nicely see the engine fan blades. On the fuselage, just above the wings, we then have the emergency exits printed on, and that of course leads us straight to the wings, which we should definitely also take a closer look at. If you see here on the top side, we can see the different flaps, slats and spoilers carved out very nicely. We have the markings for the emergency exits printed on, and also the markings as to where to walk on the wing. Very nice. The underside of the wings I think also look rather decent. Here we also have the full registration code of the aircraft once again. A highlight for me here are the landing lights, which have been added here as a printed detail. Also that is very nice. And then we have the winglets, and Herpa hasn't upgraded them. They are still too thick, but they're massively helped out by the livery here, which make them look much better than they actually are. Herpa, to be fair however, have also done a great job in replicating that livery. And it's the same story when we look at the landing gear. Here, the main landing gear underneath the wings. Yes, on first glimpse it looks alright. I mean, the detailing is pretty decent, but the landing gear itself is just way too tall. And Herpa still hasn't fixed that. The same goes for the front landing gear, it's just way too tall. Other than that, it looks great, and I'm happy that they have added some printed details, but Herpa should have fixed this detail by now. And then last but not least, we also have the doors to the cargo compartments printed on here on the back side of the aircraft, and here at the front of the aircraft. So there we have it, the Boeing 737 MAX 8 of Cayman Airways and their current livery. And what can we say about this aircraft model? Well, as I indicated in the beginning of the video, I'm actually not quite happy with this model. But let me elaborate. Now, let me straight away say, I actually think this is the best looking 737 MAX model in scale 500 from Herpa Wings so far. But it's mainly down to the fact of a really lovely looking livery and the fact that it's a Herpa Wings Club model, which means we have additional details in the print. And Herpa has done a good job. with that print. But when all that is said, I find it very disappointing that Herpa still hasn't fixed the very known issues with their 737 MAX models, and that is the way too tall landing gear, the engines being too small, and the hideously thick winglets. But even that isn't my biggest issue with this model. My biggest issue with this model is how it arrived. And things like a loose wing, yes, that can happen, and it can happen to any manufacturer of die-cast models. The question is just how often it happens. And let me give you a little bit of perspective here. I had this model ordered together with 4 other models, and out of these 5 models I received, 3 of them had loose wings. And while I was recording this episode, the other wing was so loose that it also came off, and one of the engines started to get loose. I'm sorry, Herpa, but this is a Herpa Wings Club model, and you emphasize that this is where you really give it your best. And if I have to use half a glue factory to keep my model in one piece, that's just not good enough. Yes, I can put my model back together with a little bit of glue, but that's actually not my biggest issue with these wings coming off. The issue with wings coming off is that the area just around where the wing is attached, the paint can chip off. And I'm not pulling this out of my ass because I've seen this with my own eyes on one of my models in the past. And chipped off paint is something I can't fix on a model. So Herpa, you really need to improve your quality control. Now here towards the end of the video, I have to say, of course, there's a chance that you get this model and the wings are just super tight and nothing ever will happen with it. My advice is simply take a very good look before buying it to make sure that your model won't come apart. Now with that, we have reached the end of today's episode. If you have enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like, that would be very much appreciated. And of course, if you are new around here, why not hit subscribe? That would be absolutely awesome. With that, I'd like to say thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you soon again. I'm checking out, and bye.